In today's video, we have all the latest trade talk around the NHL. We're taking a look at the Minnesota Wild and some updates on Marc-Andre Fleury. The New Jersey Devils, will they sign or trade Tyler Dufour? Lots of talk around him in the last 24 hours, plus St. Louis Blues winger Pavel Buchnevich getting lots of attention around the NHL. And is there actually something to this crazy Brady Tkachuk rumor that he could be traded? Or is it all just kind of bogus? We're going to discuss some further updates on that situation as well. The Minnesota Wild have signed another player from the KHL. We have news from the NHL waiver wire. Some very interesting news on the PWHL regarding their playoff format and upcoming draft next summer. Plus, we have another big update on the 2018 World Junior case of the players going to trial. Some more updates there as well coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to cover here today. Some very interesting news. Let's start first with news from the NHL waiver wire. We have a goaltender on waivers today. The Philadelphia Flyers have placed goalie Cal Petersen on waivers. Of course, if he clears, he'll be reassigned to the American Hockey League affiliate, which is where he was. Of course, that was before Carter Hart had to leave the team when he's one of the players, of course, in the 2018 World Junior scandal that's facing charges. Which we're going to talk about that group of players as well a little bit in a few minutes. But after Hart's departure, Petersen comes up. Now they're sending him down if they can, or if a team picks him up off their hands. I'm sure the Flyers would be forever grateful. It's unlikely given his contract, but hey, one can hope if you're a Flyers fan. And Sandstrom will be called up to be given a shot to get some games in at the NHL level. So we'll see tomorrow, 2 o'clock Eastern time, if Cal Petersen is still a Flyer or if he's been picked up by another NHL club. Now, the Women's Pro Hockey League, the PWHL, has had a phenomenal success this year. Attendance numbers have been through the roof. They're doing extremely well. They continuously break the attendance records. So it's nice to see all the success there. They're definitely going to be growth within their league, potential expansion, a lot more NHL buildings going to see some action probably next season, some neutral site games, etc. We know all that, but we got some more news today regarding their playoff format and news regarding, I guess, what'll be their 2024 PWHL draft. So there's 6 teams in the PWHL to start. Of course, their version of the original 6. How the playoffs are going to work is the top 4 teams out of the 6 will make the playoffs. The format, though, is a little bit unique and a little bit different. I know a few people I've seen online said they absolutely hate it, and there's lots that love it. It depends on how creative you want to be, and if you want to think outside the box and just do something different and fun. But the PWHL is allowing their top seeded playoff team to pick their opponent, which I think is a really neat concept. We've heard the concept before. It's never actually been done in any of the pro leagues that we follow here, at least not around the NHL or North America. Now, they cannot pick the number 2 seeded team because the top 2 teams are both given home ice advantage for their first round playoff series, which is essentially a semifinal, given that there's only 4 teams going to be battling it out here. So the top seed can pick either the 3rd or the 4th place team for their first round opponent. And of course, the other 2 teams will do battle. They will have a best of 5 series, both semifinals, and then of course the winners moving on to the final. Now, for the PWHL draft, who's going to pick first? Well, they're not doing a draft lottery format. They're doing something a little different. So essentially how it's going to work is once a team is mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, and of course there's only going to be 2 teams. So in the beginning stages, if they keep this format, it's going to be a battle amongst 2 teams until they expand. But once a team is mathematically eliminated, they're going to start earning gold standard points, I think is what they called it, towards getting that first overall pick. So essentially, they want the games to be meaningful down the stretch, even once a team is out of the playoffs and they know their season is not going to continue in that part of the campaign. So to prevent tanking and to prevent, games not being meaningful, this is the format they're going with here. So, and they have the 3-2-1 system, right? So if you get a regulation win, you get 3 points. An overtime win is 2, and an overtime loss is 1. So once a team is mathematically eliminated, all their points will be tallied up. From there, going towards the draft, so the team amongst the 2 that miss, that has the most points down the stretch, will get the first overall pick. So they're going to be rewarded for strong play after they've been eliminated. So be curious to see how this works out, what kind of feedback it gets, and if we'll ever see something more creative in other leagues, such as the NHL or, European leagues, etc. So some curious stuff there to kind of keep an eye on. As I mentioned as well, the Minnesota Wild today announced a signing that was expected to happen this week. And looks like it's a pretty interesting player. It is a player from the KHL, and it is a player that they actually drafted. They've signed him to a 2-year entry-level contract because he's a little bit older. He was drafted back in 2020. Murat Husnadernov from the KHL, who's been actually playing with Sochi this year for the last stretch, was actually is the same team that top NHL prospect drafted by the Flyers, Matvei Michkov, plays for. And they did mutually terminate his contract early so he could come over and sign with the Wild. Since it's a 2-year contract for an ELC because he's a few years older, and it starts this year. So he's going to burn a year off this year, and then the next year, and then he'll be an RFA. He's 5'11", 176, pretty solid, offensive type of forward. He actually had matched the mark by Artemi Panarin, not this year, but last year, for the 7th highest season total for totals for the league. So obviously, to match the offensive output of Artemi Panarin is pretty darn good. Obviously, he wanted to make the jump over to North America and join the Wild, so he's now able to do so. Like I said, he was drafted in 2020, 37th overall. They had to wait, just like a lot of these players, but hopefully it's worth the wait, and he'll have an impact. Now, the contract technically is effective right away, but it will be a little bit before he can play. Obviously, they have to go through the immigration issues and get him over to the U.S. That's going to take a little bit of time. Probably want him to have a couple of practices. I would say he's probably not going to play for at least a week, maybe more. But it could be closer to 2 weeks. It's hard to say. I'm not sure how quickly all that paperwork and everything will go through. But he is a Minnesota Wild player, and we'll see action this year. As I mentioned as well, we have a fairly substantial update on the 2018 World Junior players that are facing sexual assault charges from the 2018 Team Canada roster. Of course, we know those 5 players are Carter Hart, Alex Formanton, Michael McLeod, Cal Foote, and Dylan Dubé. We got word today from Robin Doolittle of the Globe and Mail confirming that they have elected to face trial by jury. Now, they had the option by either trial by judge or by jury. They've selected jury. Now, they will also all be tried together, so it's going to be one trial. It's not going to be 5 separate trials running along the same time. And it doesn't also mean that they're all going to end up with the same verdict. We've seen cases. It's happened before. If you follow any, cases like this where there's a group of people being tried in the same crime, they could determine that some of them are guilty and some of them are not. So it doesn't mean that they're all going to either be found guilty or not guilty. So that is not necessarily a given. So it could be some time before the actual trial date is set. There's no clear-cut answer when that's going to be. Some have said it could be a few months. It could be several months, but it's not expected to likely make it for the trial to start. Like when the date is set, it's quite likely going to be late next year or even into early 2026. So this is going to be a story that we're following for a really long time before we officially know how everything played out legally. But that's what we know here as of today. On to the rumor section of the video. Of course, Marc-Andre Fleury is a name that we're watching close. One of the all-time great goaltenders who's rumored to be on his final season. Of course, we don't know that 100%. We'll have to wait till the season is over and see what he announces, if he's going to continue playing or if he hangs him up. But Elliot Friedman made a comment today on Twitter saying that as much as we don't know what the Minnesota Wild are going to be doing down the stretch, because they're still kind of in that playoff hunt, but they're not secure in a spot, but they're still in the mix. He says that they're not going to be moving Fleury, that they're quite happy to keep him. Obviously, we know as long as Minnesota's in the race, they're not going to want to trade him. And the belief was that if Minnesota was in the race playing meaningful games, that he didn't want to be traded either. I think the only scenario that could have presented a Fleury trade is if they were long out of it and he knew 100% that they weren't going anywhere. Then maybe, if the right offer presented itself, maybe he takes it up. But as of right now, I mean, things can change a lot in a week too. But Normally, Elliott wouldn't put a statement out like that if there was really any chance that they're going to change their minds, but it's hard to say with certainty 100% sometimes because things can take a swing drastically for the good or the bad in a week or so time. Now, in New Jersey, another situation to monitor is Tyler Toffoli. Now, he hasn't been a player that's really been mentioned in the rumor mill much at all through the entire season. Obviously, the Devils were expected to be a strong team, expected to be a playoff team, maybe even have a chance to win a few rounds this year. They've taken a step back. They've had their struggles. Goaltending has been a problem. The D-core is not the same. They lost some veteran defensemen through the offseason. They're also lost Dougie Hamilton to injury. The young guys are doing the best they can, but they're kind of in a little bit over their heads, and they're certainly having their fair share of struggles. Now, when it comes to Toffoli, there's no reason to think that they absolutely want to trade him. The belief is that GM Tom Fitzgerald is talking to Toffoli's representatives about a potential contract extension. So I think part of this is going to be determined by how those conversations go. Are they able to negotiate a deal that works for the Devils, that makes them want to get it done to keep him? The other thing that's going to kind of play in a role here as well is that the Devils sit far enough back right now from a playoff spot that it's a pretty daunting task, and it's certainly up. They're up against it. The odds are against them big time of getting in. But it's not to say that a 3 or 4 game winning streak couldn't fix that. So I think depending on how the next few games go between now and the deadline, if they win a bunch of, win a few in a row and they're still very much right there, we'll see. Maybe they keep them. But if they start to slip a little bit further over the next week, if the negotiations are not super promising and teams are calling with some good offers, he very well could be on the move. I know one team that's reportedly already checked in on him is his former team, the Los Angeles Kings, who desperately need help on the wings after having guys like Arvidsson and Grundstrom were already out, and then they lost Kempe, and it's not clear exactly the timeline they're dealing with for Kempe yet. He could be a terrific fit there, go back to his old stomping grounds with the Kings if there's a deal to be had there. So, like I said, not a given that he gets moved, but it's a situation worth monitoring. Teams are watching him because he's a proven playoff performer, a Stanley Cup champion, got a great contract, and a player that teams would love to have around. So there's going to be interest. It's just a matter of what the Devils decide to do. In St. Louis, Pavel Buchnevich is another one of those situations as well. A guy that comes with a bit of term. He has another year in his contract at $5.8 million. Very much a strong contract for what he's able to do. Is pretty close to a point per game player, hovering around that 30 goal mark. He's been a player who's thrived in St. Louis, was doing well with the Rangers. The Rangers traded him a few years ago, mainly because they didn't want to pay him. And they obviously had, a lot of up-and-coming players that, from a cap perspective, from a cap management, I understand kind of why, but I think they probably regretted it since, to be honest. But Buchnevich is a guy that's generating interest. Now, there's no guarantee the Blues move him. They don't need to. Like I said, he's not an upcoming UFA. He's another year on his contract. It could be a deal that happens in the summer. Maybe he plays it out. Maybe he's a candidate for a move at next year's deadline. It's really hard to say. The fact is, there's lots of teams interested. Right now, the asking price is believed to be quite high. Looking at at least a first-round pick, if not multiple, or a first-round pick and a really high-end prospect, like a recently drafted first-round type of prospect. It's going to be a fairly steep asking price, which I'm not 100% convinced that the deal gets done because of the price, unless the price comes down. Because I'm not sure that teams like him, but there's not a lot of teams that are going to want to pay that huge of a price. I know Frank Saravalli mentioned how great of a fit he would be for the Edmonton Oilers, given the fact that, we know Holland doesn't want to move Broberg or a first-round pick, ideally on a rental, but he wouldn't be getting a rental, and a guy like Buchnevich could be a great fit with Connor and Leon in the top 6. You'd have to move out a contract or two and make it work from a money perspective. Maybe it's Foegele and Kulak, or Foegele and Ceci, or some combination of something like that. You throw in a guy like Broberg, maybe they would move him for a player that's going to stick around for a while. And maybe you have a deal. Maybe there don't have to be a first-round pick in there too, but there's options. It could work. But is it the perfect fit? It might be one of the better ones. It might be more realistic than a guy like Jake Gensel, who's apparently very much linked to Vancouver. I know the latest intel there was suggesting that the Canucks are sounds like they're willing to pay a steep price to get Gensel and extend him. I don't know that that's going to work out. Hard to say. They're slowly becoming Penguins 2.0 or Penguins Light, whatever you want to call it, but it's crazy how many connections they have now to the Penguins. And as I mentioned, is there actually something to all this Brady Tkachuk talk, or is it all just a bunch of hogwash? And as we talked about in the last 24 to 48 hours here, I kind of chucked it up myself as being that there's no way Ottawa would move Brady Tkachuk. Now, the original comments came from Spit and Chicklets co-host Ryan Whitney, former player, well-connected NHLer, and not only is he well-connected, but a Boston area guy, has lots of connections, friends and family to a lot of the players that grew up in the area. Well, the Tkachuks have a lot of connections in that area. All the Tkachuks have been on their podcasts. He knows them all. There's some talk that maybe he was talking or could have got his information from Keith himself, Brady's dad. Hard to say. But all Whitney said was that there was a crazy rumor that they were told that it's something that Ottawa might be thinking about. And then he said that they would be insane to do it, which is true. And like I said before, unless Brady goes to you and says, I want out of here, trade me, unless he's demanding it, you don't do it. Even if he starts to demand it, you try to diffuse that and see if you can keep him first, right? Like, come on, he's your franchise building block here. And then Renaud Lavoie of TVL Sports, he kind of doubled down on that same intel, saying that there probably is something to it. Again, acknowledging that fact that Whitney would have some strong connections to get the info from. Like, you don't know who told him this, but is this a case of Keith Tkachuk kind of talking, through one of his connections to kind of get the word out there that, hey, maybe if things don't improve, Brady was going to want out? Like, it wouldn't be unusual at all for the Tkachuks to use the media through the back door here, so to speak, to kind of get some information out there to put pressure on a team. It wouldn't at all. It wouldn't surprise me in the least little bit. So again, Steve Staios, still the GM of the Sens, was talking to Pierre LeBrun on the podcast, and he shot it down completely and said that there is absolutely nothing to that they're trying to build this team around Brady Tkachuk, and that he means everything to the organization, and they would not want to move him at all. Like, he even laughed. He chuckled when it was first mentioned and said, absolutely not. Like, why would he want to trade Brady Tkachuk? You're not going to win those deals. You're just not. When you're moving the best player in a trade like that, it's almost impossible to come out victorious. And why would you want to? Like, he's not the problem. He needs more help is what you need. You need a goaltender in Ottawa. The goaltenders have been like Swiss cheese. You can't stop a beach ball. Their decor has been better overall, but every once in a while they have their moments. Like Jacob Chychrun has been hot garbage the last couple of games. I really like his game overall, but the last couple of games on this road trip, Chychrun has been bad. And then Korpisalo and Forsberg can't make a save. That's your problem. More than anything, goaltending is the issue there, not Brady. So is there something to it? I still don't think so. But when you get a respected, connected journalist like Renaud Lavoie saying that he thinks there's something to it, it raises eyebrows, it perks up ears, gets people talking, gets people thinking, and you have to kind of talk about it and see what you think. But could it happen? I guess anything's possible. I highly doubt it, though. I'm sure Sens fans would love to have these rumors go bye-byes and not have another distraction amongst his team. They already had enough injuries happen in Nashville last night after they got their second straight loss on a 2-game road trip. So we don't know about Josh Norris. We don't know about Thomas Chabot. Even Sanderson was dealing with a bit of an injury too. Like, they're all possibly going to be out now. So, the wheels could fall off any hope of having a strong finish to the season by the Sens. They're bound to make some moves. Will Brady Tkachuk be one? I don't think so. Let me know what you think, though, down in the comments, and we'll discuss it further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.